most of you watching this, unfortunately, at least 70% of you are under chronic low-level stress, which means that you don't even know you're stressed. You're basically swimming in the soup and the water just keeps getting warmer and warmer and warmer.
To understand how chronic stress affects your brain, we have to know the role of the prefrontal cortex. That's very important.
The person says, I have brain fog, I can't concentrate, I can't read for a prolonged period of time. It's hard for me to make good decisions. It's simply because the brain is not receiving enough oxygen and the metabolism is low as well. Because of all the stress, it physically changes your brain. Like you can see that in a functional MRI, that it reduces the size. It's just impressive. Chronic stress does that and then affects everything else. Now we have technology to measure it in 5 minutes. Non-invasive, very easy to use.
This is technology that actually specifically tells you what's going on in the body and in the brain. Please take action, because knowledge alone doesn't do anything. Knowledge applied is power.
Welcome to the Brain Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Patrick Porter. Please join us on our mission to better a billion brains. Enjoy the episode and remember to share it with your family and friends.
Hey, this is Dr. Patrick Porter. Welcome back to the Brain Fitness Podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit more about science. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the technologies we use here at the BrainTap Research Lab. And we have a special guest with us today. So I'm going to let Dr. Cidral introduce him, because we have, it's not very often that we get people from other countries to come into the United States and help us to go over our research and show how the brain works and how the BrainTap can help in assessing it. And we're going to go over some things here on how chronic stress affects your brain. So Dr. Cidral, I'm going to let you lead the charge here. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here, right? Dr. Gianluca is a brother. He's a medical doctor, functional medicine, and he specialized. He's so many different specializations that I forget, actually. He developed his own methodology on the modulation through auricular therapy, like the whole program. And he as masters in posturology, is an acupuncturist, a functional medicine doctor with a very nice facility, a clinic in maybe like 3 miles from the Colosseum in Rome that we just visited last year, Patrick and I. And he is a star in the international scenario, especially in Italy, as a member of the Open Academy of Medicine, which is one of the most prestigious schools in medicine in the world. And most important, I think, is he's also a sommelier, so he really understands about wine. So I think that's more.
Yes,
important.
but beyond all this quality, I don't know why my friend Chico called me Godfather.
The Godfather.
Godfather.
Padrino. Very good. So we've been working together for quite some time and doing a lot of different research projects together. He is a professor and he runs a lab at Sapienza University in Rome, which is one of the oldest universities in the world. It's been around for thousands of years. And I'm an associate professor at the lab as well. And we're doing some very interesting research with BrainTap there. So, it's a pleasure to be here and talking to you about what we have to say. He's going to kind of explain a little bit about how chronic stress affects your brain.
Of course.
And then the things that we are doing now to integrate the devices from an Italian group that we work with into the research and into the treatment with BrainTap. And these are part of the protocols that he actually uses in his functional medicine clinic and teaches in Europe. So.
Yes, it will be a purpose to an integration that one practitioner can do between a type of brainwave entrainment that we can do with our device together with the BrainTap that is perfect, because the patient can't continue at home the same work made at office. And then to understand how chronic stress affects your brain, we have to know the role of the prefrontal cortex. That's very important, because distinguish the human cell from the other species,
Species. Yes.
And then thinking about thinking, does it mean the importance of the higher reasoning executive function? We know that there are 9 executive functions from the prefrontal cortex, like the empathy is a typical skill of the prefrontal cortex, the capacity to filter the information that are not useful, for example. And then you can understand if, for example, if the prefrontal cortex is not so trained and is not so in health, there will be an overtraining because the impossibility and incapacity to filter the information too much from the ambient. And then the insight is a quality of the prefrontal cortex, but very important is the capacity for our survival of the species, the capacity to respond with flexibility. And then we know that the emotion flexibility is like a cognitive flexibility, but also that autonomic flexibility that can adapt ourselves to respond in a in the right
an appropriate way,
in the appropriate way to such stimulus and stress that we meet during the day. And then the importance from the prefrontal cortex of the emotion regulation. That's why, because the prefrontal cortex can inhibit the excess of fight or flight and the sympathetic central dominance by the limbic system. But also, the prefrontal cortex is the king of the regulation of the whole body, and then all the physiology is in the end of the activity of prefrontal cortex and the modulation of some emotion like fear. In the next slide, we can see, in fact, that the prefrontal cortex can be damaged from a chronic stress, an overactivated stress that releases from the adrenal gland the cortisol, the stress hormone, that modulates, we know, the immune response, but regulates metabolism, but during the night can destructure the brain circuits. You know, Patrick, do you want to...
Chronic stress, right? That's something that Patrick talks about all the time. It really affects your brain.
And we can see here that the brain areas affected from chronic stress are, first of all, the amygdala, and then the importance of the emotion process and the regulation of fear and anxiety. But the hippocampus also involved in the memory. And in the memory, also in the memory of the emotion responsivity of the human soul, but especially the prefrontal cortex. And then we know that cortisol can damage the prefrontal cortex, that has an important role, like I told before, in executive function, a role in decision making, a role in regulation of the response emotional, and that's so important. And then the impact of chronic stress and of cortisol on the brain damage, it was demonstrated in the scientific literature that there is an atrophy of the hippocampus, for example, that we can demonstrate with functional with functional MRI. And there is a reduced gray matter of the prefrontal cortex. And then, together with the atrophy of the hippocampus, the stress induced a reduction of the gray matter of prefrontal cortex. That's very important because of the 9 function of prefrontal cortex. And this led to increased activity of amygdala, overstress, hyperactivated, memory problems, and then the impaired of cognitive function and decreased emotional regulation. Okay, next one, we can see in fact that normally in physiology the prefrontal cortex in a physiologic state in alert makes a top-down regulation of thought, action and emotion. But when a brain is stressed, we can see that this top-down regulation go away, and then the amygdala start to an overactivity, and the basal ganglia habitual response led to a brain that is more primitive brain, more habitual responding, and this has an impact also on the autonomic nervous system, and all the body is in an over fight or flight over time, is in a continued overdrive. This is the problem. I think that you Patrick, you met a lot of people in your life with this chronic state of overactivity of the emotion of the fight or flight response. And we know that BrainTap has a great impact on this to improve this person, because to break this circuit loop, negative loop in the brain of this person. It's true.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, with the 24-hour news cycle and people getting fear, frustration, and anxiety, it's driving the system, and people don't know how to dysregulate. I mean, their body is dysregulated because they don't know how to regulate from this top-down problem. I mean, we need to be, like you said, we need to get back to the thoughts, actions, and emotions, not working from emotion first. You know, it's overdriving the system. So
interesting thing that he just said is our brain turns more primitive, because the prefrontal cortex is what distincts us from, the rest of the animals. So when you shut it down because of all the stress, we turn into primitive beings.
I
think everyone
be your wife, for example,
do stupid things.
Yeah. I think everyone can identify with, they get to a certain point where you get to a breaking point where you might have a loved one and you go off on them. You didn't really want to go off on them, but you do. And then afterwards you go, man, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Yes. But the emotions overdrove the behavior, because emotion drives behavior.
That's it.
So, unless we learn how to think, act, and respond, like we're talking about here. So, yeah, that's why we have to prepare. We have to rehearse. And that's where the brainwave entrainment comes in. So, no, very good.
Yes, in this slide, for example, is resume that the chronic stress, we know, increased cortisol level, prolonged activation of stress response, and has an impact on physical and emotional symptoms. And prefrontal cortex, otherwise, has a role in executive function, regulates emotional response and physiologic response, but is involved also in decision making and in stress response. And then the health implication of the chronic stress on prefrontal cortex are the increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Then you understand the importance to maintain the activity, the physiology of prefrontal cortex, also to save the heart. But also digestive problems are another health implication. Weaken immune system and mental health issue, but not only mental, also the immune aspect is involved in this process, and the impact of chronic stress on PhD specifically is reduced gray matter of PSC, I told, impaired cognitive function, but impaired decision making. And then a lot of people start to make some decision for their life that are absolutely suicidal, for example.
Suicidal decisions.
Let's back up just a little bit. Explain to everyone who's listening, because they might not know why it's important to have gray matter in the brain. So maybe explain why it's important that you don't diminish the gray matter.
The gray matter is the brain itself. Is all the stuff.
So when we're talking about gray matter, that's why they said during COVID, the average brain shrunk 3/4 of an inch.
Because of all the stress, it physically changes your brain. Like, you can see that in a functional MRI, that it reduces the size. It's just impressive. Chronic stress does that, and then affects everything else,
Okay. I just wanted, not everyone who's watching this is going to be a medical doctor that understands what gray matter is. So I just wanted to make sure that they understood that, we're talking about, here we go, this is great. Yeah. Go ahead and explain what we're seeing here.
Yes, thanks, and understood. But first of all, there's some management strategies that we are going to talk about. For example, between others, the brainwave treatment logically. But before do something therapeutical, I think that it's important to assess. The first step is to assess the activity of the prefrontal cortex. And then, Francisco, if you can explain how to assess how to assess the activity of cerebral blood flow and metabolism of prefrontal cortex with our validated technology that is validated comparing with functional magnetic resonance, but it's not invasive. This is the great difference.
Yeah, it's just talking about the gray matter, this is the actual structure of the brain.
Exactly.
And it reduces over time depending on the chronic, stress activation, and so you literally lose part of your brain, and the thinking part of it, and the one that modulates everything else is very important. So what he was saying is very important, that we have technology to measure it in 5 minutes. Non-invasive, very easy to use. We just put the sensors, and I could show it over here. I think it would facilitate. So it's a sensor, and this technology is a far infrared spectroscopy technology. You place the sensors on the person's forehead for the prefrontal cortex on the right side and the left side for both hemispheres. This device connects to your computer, and what it is doing is simply looking at blood flow and the metabolism of oxygen in your prefrontal cortex. So it's telling us if there is enough blood circulation and if your brain is actually reacting to that, if it's using that and using the oxygen. So if this area is activated, because this has been done with thousands and thousands of people over the course of like more than 20 years.
Yes.
So we know what it should be, where it should be, depending on the age and depending on the sex. There are variations, and I have to say, ladies generally think a lot more than we do. Constantly. Anyways, but we can measure that and show it real time.
I'll do it every day with my patients in Rome. Every fucking day.
Yeah. So here is not to be too technical, but here
The
is
report, yes.
the assessment that shows the flow, and where is that? Okay, over here, the oxygen metabolism. You can see. And it is showing us, how, in this case, for instance, the person starts a little bit higher and then decreases over time. That means that the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is kind of disengaging from the task. And that's very typical in people that have problems concentrating for a long period of time.
Exactly.
Very, very common. I think you see this in most of the patients that you look at.
Yes, and we can train this skill with some neurofeedback, for example, that the patient can do at home together with the brainwave entrainment, for example, and then are one active therapy and together with one passive therapy.
Yes.
Very important.
And here are the norms. You see that this individual is below the norm, should be between 50 and 150, the activity. Oxygen, regional cerebral blood oxygenation, and it's low. It's 37. Not only that, the person engaged at first and then decreased so over the course of 5 minutes, the brain just disconnected. This is very typical of people that have high levels of stress. And so everything is managed more in the limbic system,
Exactly.
and the reactivity
Exactly.
type of brain. And then the person says, "Oh, I have brain fog. I can't concentrate. I can't read for a prolonged period of time. It's hard for me to make good decisions." It's simply because the brain is not receiving enough oxygen and the metabolism is low as well. And what can we do? There is a lot of things that we can do. One of the most important ones, as you know, is going to be stress management. You have to find activities that you can do. There are different ways that we can do this in the lab at the clinic, but if you only do it like once or twice a week at the clinic, it's not enough. That's why the BrainTap comes into as a very valuable tool, because you can do it every day, many times a day if you want, in your house. And that changes the whole scenario.
Exactly, because Francisco is talking about the management, stress management, for example, but it's only one way to treat this problem that led problems like insomnia also, but also chronic pain is related to an hypofrontal activity. Otherwise, you can see that to manage the strategies for prefrontal cortex, there are, for example, cognitive training, attention control, memory exercise, and we do some neurofeedback designed to this scope, problem-solving task, for example, but also together with mindfulness and meditation, breath techniques, mindfulness-based stress reduction, but also together with lifestyle intervention that is very important to the patient has the regular physical activity. Today is demonstrated that the body is so important to regulate in a bidirectional way the activity of prefrontal cortex, stress management, like Chico told, and adequate sleep. But Also, there is the social engagement is so important, but I don't want to focus in the aspect right now. There are some medical intervention like non-invasive brain stimulation that we use through the air pavilion with a neuromodulation based on auricular acupuncture, but
And also with the headset where we have the lights that is stimulating the vagus nerve that is located in with the superficial branch over here. So
yes, and then the BrainTap, for example, you can summary this aspect with
the brainwave entrainment.
with the brainwave entrainment together. But we know the neurofeedback I told, and the brain training apps that we use every day for the neurofeedback. The patient can do it at home, and then the brainwave entrainment. Just to have a look. Focusing on the brainwave entrainment and prefrontal cortex is very important because we know that brainwave entrainment is a synchronization of brainwaves with external stimuli. Okay, this is specific, and the types of waves are delta, theta, gamma, beta, alpha. Each one has some special frequency, and we can impact on this activity, and we can choose the type of wave that we want to have a modulation of the stress response of prefrontal cortex, for example, with isochronic tones that inside the BrainTap, with monochromatic light that inside the BrainTap, with binaural beats that inside the BrainTap, and with electromagnetic fields that we use at office with a device called Regmatex, that is a device to a Venetian company called Biotecna, that you can have a regulation of the action potential of the whole body, choosing one of the wave that you want to stimulate, like theta, delta for the chronic pain, for example, during this kind of activity at office. And what's great is that you can really choose to treat the limbic system, the autonomic nervous system, the stress system, or to stimulate some beta, gamma, alpha, theta, or delta waves of the brain. And the patient at home can do the same kind of stimulation that we have assessed in a custom-made way, in a suitable way at office. This is the great of the integration.
So one of the things that maybe he didn't emphasize enough that I think is interesting is that with this device it does an assessment and then a treatment at the same time. But during the assessment, we can see what is lacking in terms of delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, and then you can go into the treatment module, and then you can emphasize or stimulate that specific band. So we evaluate a person, we know what's missing, we look at the way that the prefrontal cortex is working, and then we look at the brain waves, which ones are lacking or that it's overstimulated, and then we go to the treatment mode, and then we modulate them, and then we send people home with the BrainTap to do those specific sessions again. So this is a beautiful combination of the work.
Yes, because during the session we can assess the potential membrane activity, the membrane potential, and then we can choose which is the type of specific brain activity that led the best improve of the action potential membrane of the whole body. And this is the prescription, like a drug for the patient at home with BrainTap.
Electronic drug or music. Yes, there you go.
Yeah, so for those watching that are wondering what's the technology, they can go to the Integrative Wellbeing Institute, right? And look at there's some courses there where they can learn about it. You have the equipment there. They can learn about it from both of you. Obviously, if they're in Europe, they can get a hold of Dr. Gianluca. And if they're here in the United States, they can talk to Dr. Cidral. And of course, we're always available here at BrainTap. We have it here at our clinic. We use it every day here. When we have people coming in, we use it to evaluate people. And just to kind of summarize it, and then we'll have a little conversation about it, it's for those doctors, especially clinics out there that want to know more. We know that you can do all these different biohacks, you can do all these different health optimizations, and it's kind of like throwing food on the wall and you're going to see what sticks. This is technology that actually specifically tells you what's going on in the body and in the brain, because this wasn't technology was available in the 70s and 80s when I first started. I mean, this would have blown their minds. Nobody knew this would even be possible. So now we're looking at electrical activity that can be measured through blood flow, oxygen, all of these things that help with metabolism. Because the reality is that we're in an energy deficit, really. I mean, when you're stressed out and you don't have energy to the cells, those neurons aren't going to wire and fire together. And so your cognitive decline is going to start to happen. So as we work on it, we have a clinical program. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube or on a social media channel, please check us out on Integrative Wellbeing Institute, because we have trainings there that can show you how to use this equipment. And if you want to regulate your discoveries, really, I mean, if you want to be cutting edge, old school neurotherapy and things like that, where you're looking at movies and you're watching videos and things like that, that's okay. But I've never seen it do what this does. I mean, this is incredible. Like Dr. Cidral was saying, we can actually measure the brain in real time and give it a treatment in real time. So this is something that I've not seen with any other piece of equipment. If you have that other piece of equipment out there, please contact us, let us know, because I don't know of anything out there that does this. This is incredible. And we're talking about something right now, most of you watching this, unfortunately, at least 70% of you are under chronic low-level stress, which means that you don't even know you're stressed. You're basically swimming in the soup, and the water just keeps getting warmer and warmer and warmer, and like Psychology 101, where the frog dies and doesn't realize that it's killing itself. We need to get you out of that by showing you. And one thing I love about science is you can't argue with your own information. So I know that Dr. Gianluca and Dr. Cidral we're working hard. We're putting together trainings all over Europe, all over America, actually in India. We want to get this out to the world because we now have technology. This is one of the most advanced technologies I've ever seen to measure the brain and treat the brain, because it's one thing to get a diagnosis. And a lot of people, in fact, just yesterday, I had somebody send me their scan from another, piece of technology. And I said, well, the scan means nothing. I mean, who cares? I mean, you can show me a map of Italy, but if I don't have somebody who tells me, what it means to go there and what I might be able to see, it doesn't do me any good. I need to know the background. And the nice thing about this technology is there's a lot about the report. So tell us a little bit about what happens in the reporting, because I love the reports it produces as well. So maybe talk about, with the treatment plans and what you've seen when people start to use this in the clinical level, and, using, and I love the way you said, we always talk about, what are you doing for home care? I mean, if they come into your clinic once or twice a week, that's great. That's 2 hours a week. But what are they doing the other, 23 hours of the day?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the clinic level as far as with clients coming in or patients coming in, before and afters. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing.
Yes, it depends on the state of the patient at the first evaluation. And then normally it's very important to do something at office, like once or 2 times a week, to train the brain. But it's more important the patient work at home, and there we build together with the patient a morning routine and a night routine. For the prefrontal cortex and for the brain is very important the respect of the circadian activity, and the cortisol, he has a circadian activity, and when you lose this circadian activity during the night, starts the damage on the prefrontal cortex, on the gray matter that we view before, and then it's very important the patients start to train and to support the activity of cortisol during the first hour of the day, like from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. during physical activity, also during some neurofeedback, and stimulate, for example, with BrainTap, just 11 minutes with alpha training, for example. In the night, otherwise, the contrary, and then
Hot bath,
hot shower, respiration, breathing with the expiration phase longer than the inspiration, and another type of neurofeedback, and another type to stimulate with BrainTap, in that case theta or delta. But if the patient has chronic pain, for example, I suggest to do a session with BrainTap delta in the afternoon also, and in the night, and always alpha in the morning, for example. And then you can create a really suitable program to the patient depending on the assessment. That's very important, because if, for example, a patient has a degree of the activity like Francisco showed here, in this case, does it mean that the patient has no ability to maintain one's force and to maintain your prescription also? And then you have to modulate all the lifestyle correction based on the physiological state of the patient. And then you can decide. This is awesome, I think, because it is very custom made.
The interesting thing is he was talking about the circadianity of the cortisol, how it works. The other piece of device that we use can actually measure it and tell us if your cortisol levels are circadian, if it's flat high or flat low. It also measures in the other piece of equipment, because you can think of it, if this persists for a prolonged period of time, you're going to have physical changes. It physically changes your body. Right? Reduces your brain, but not just the brain, other parts of your body get affected as well. And the other device gives us a complete body composition analysis where we can look at all the things that is already moving in terms of loss of bone mass, loss of muscle mass, and loss of the circadianity of the rhythm of the cortisol and all that. And he's been seeing a lot of good results with the patients when they start into this program.
It's incredible. The patients are crazy, are super happy. You can see on the commentary on my website. But that's why what Francisco told us is the reason, because of we called the course that we put on the Integrative Wellbeing Institute functional health and longevity, because of the impact on the whole physiology and the whole health of the organism based on this kind of construction of the lifestyle in this way.
Right. So I'm going to encourage everyone watching as we round out this podcast today. This is great, guys. Thanks for being there. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend, because if you didn't know, we are actually going to be in Orlando. If you're watching this after the event, we're actually doing a live event that Dr. Cidral and Dr. Will both be there. We'll all be there teaching and about science and how science can actually transform our lives, because we no longer have to guess anymore. We can test. We can measure, we can evaluate, we can adapt. There's not a one size fits all anymore. The world is changing. And so you can head over to the Integrative Wellbeing Institute.com. You can start to take the trainings there. Dr. Gianluca is going to continue to give us more trainings, because he's out there in the cutting edge, or the bleeding edge, as they call it, showing people how to use this technology in real time. This isn't just, he is at an institute, but he actually has a clinic, and I love your clinic. I love going there and being there. And you're working with real people every day. It's not just mice. I'm sorry, Francisco. I know that you like working with mice. But, when you work with real people, you see real results. And we're doing it here at BrainTap, and Dr. Cidral leads that charge. And we're showing every day how this works. So please like and share this video. Tell your doctors about it. Let them know that there is a solution, that it's complicated, but it can be simple as well. This technology, we use it every day here. We have it set up in the clinic. And once you get it set up and you start doing it, it just becomes a part of your ritual every day to get it up. We're electrical beings, and we need to get our physiology, our psychology, and all of these things working together. And now we have technology that has merged these two sciences, because you can't have good psychology without good physiology. It's just impossible. So we need to be working together to get these two working, and when we call about brain fitness, If you have lack of oxygen blood flow to different regions of the brain, it's not your fault. We just need to fix it. And when you think about it, just like if your car was breaking down, you got to take it into the expert. This is the way to do it. And if you're a doctor out there or you're a clinic out there and you want to learn how to do this, the Integrative Wellbeing Institute has the trainings for you. Dr. Cidral and Dr. Gianluca will have the technology. We have it here at BrainTap. If you're a BrainTap office, then you can reach out to your business growth advisor and set up a time to come visit us here in New Bern, because we'll take you through the whole thing. I mean, we love having people come in. Next week, actually, after we get done in Orlando, we have a couple doctors coming in. They're going to be spending a week here, and we're doing research with the equipment, and we're going to be showing how this works with cell metabolism for weight loss, because this is still a big problem out there in the world, and people don't realize it's not always what you're eating, it's what's eating you. You know, how's your stress affecting your body's physiology and psychology? So do you have any parting messages for our listeners before we end the podcast today, guys?
I think it's it's always been a goal of ours to try and bring these technologies into the real world and see people using it. You know, from the labs at the universities that we are involved with all the time to the clinics and the people, and it's a pleasure to be working with you in this project, like bringing it to the BrainTap and then to the world. Like we said, like you always say, let's influence 1 billion brains, right? We have to know how to influence them first and how the state is. So let's evaluate them and then treat them.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. Remember, we're on a mission to better 1 billion brains. Now, you can't better them if you don't know where they're at right now. It's just like going on GPS. If I want to go somewhere, the GPS first needs to know where I'm at right now. Where am I starting with, and where do I want to go? So we need to measure it, test it, and then evaluate it. And so the nice thing is that on the Integrative Wellbeing Institute website, we have training that can take you and walk you through. It's not as difficult as you think. It might have looked difficult. I mean, some of those graphs were kind of mind-boggling, when you see all the different branches. But, we have a very sophisticated brain, but we can break it down into simplicity because technology. We have a technology problem in the world today. We need to scale with technology to change the world. So let's all work together. Share this video, share with your family and friends. There's a solution for brain fog. There's a solution for cognitive decline. We know the solution. We just need to get everyone involved in helping people to understand that through light, sound, and vibration, like you're saying, neurofeedback, BrainTap, brainwave entrainment, there's light, sound, vibration. There's things we can do, and nutrition, of course, in movement therapy. But on the Integrative Wellbeing Institute, Dr. Cidral's been doing a very good job putting together trainings that can walk you through how to implement this in your clinic, or if you're an individual, we have trainings for you as an individual. If you're watching this up to this point, you can get on there and start learning about your own brain, take control of your own health, because no one knows you better than you. So let's start activating it. Now, the equipment is available here in the United States right now. So if you saw the equipment and you liked it and you want to know more about it, then reach out to either Dr. Cidral, Dr. Gianluca, and they will help you to get this equipment into your office. If you want to attend one of our live seminars, then please reach out to us, let us know, and we'll put you on the list, because we're doing regional events. We do them we did an event in Italy, which was great. I'd love to go back there and do another one. And we're doing them in India. We're doing them around the world. So if you're watching this and you want to learn more about brain function and real science that works in the real world, and that's what I like to say. This is real science in the real world that gets real results. So when you think about, it's not just hypothetical. This isn't metaphysical anymore. This is science. So, and I stole from Dr. Cidral here a while ago. He says, this isn't Sunday. You don't have to believe this. This is science. So, keep your beliefs for Sunday. This is science. So we have science that shows that you can improve your brain function. You can improve your life by improving the energy that you have on your day-to-day life. So again, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of the BrainTap Nation. And we look forward to this is only episode 2. We have a lot more to go. I mean, you have a lot more to share with people. We have so many scientific discoveries out there that are showing that the brain can change. And remember, it can change at any age. So we're working on bettering 1 billion brains. If you've watched this far, it's your brain we're talking about. So please take action, because knowledge alone doesn't do anything. Knowledge applied is power. And we want to empower you to improve your life and improve the lives of those that you love. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on our mission to better a billion brains. Follow at Dr. Patrick Porter on social media for updates, and remember to practice brain fitness every day.